that's our constitution to always be happy. That's why it doesn't feel right when we're unhappy, when we're suffering. It's a very incompatible situation for the eternal, blissful, fully conscious soul to be in the material world, which is temporary and full of ignorance and suffering, which is the diametric opposite of our real nature. Satchitananda means eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. But the material world is asat, it's temporary, it's achat, full of ignorance, and nirananda, full of misery. So it feels very uncomfortable situation for a conscious person. Of course, in the other species other than human, they're not very conscious at all. So they're quite accepting the suffering and not doing anything about it. But in human form of life, we have that latent capacity. We've got more consciousness, more awareness, and more perception of these miseries. And there's a potential to do something about it, to try to counteract it, try to counteract these miseries, get free from them. So that's what Vedic culture is very expert at doing, how to mitigate these miseries permanently. Of course, modern society is also trying to get free from miseries, and there's so many counteractive methods. But unfortunately, it's like they're Band-Aids. They're just Band-Aids. They don't really solve the problem. They just cover it over or make us forget it for a short time. Just like modern medicine, right? Usually modern medicine doesn't really solve the disease, but it just covers over the symptoms of it. Covers over the symptoms, and it might actually create more diseases. You might even solve one thing but create 5 more problems. But like Ayurveda, for example, the knowledge of health from India goes into finding out what's the actual cause of the disease and treating that so that actually you get free from the disease and become healthy. So modern society is a lot about these quick fixes and just complicating our life and actually creating more problems. Like a common example is that there used to be a problem from walking from A to B. It's a bit taxing using your legs and so forth, walking to some village or something like that to get something that you needed. So some bright spark, Henry Ford had an idea to create a car, and he did that, and where are we, 100 years later? We solved some of the problem of going from A to B, although now because of traffic, often that it takes longer to get from one place in the city to another than if we'd walked. If we'd walked, we probably would get there faster, especially in massive traffic jams and stuff in many big cities. And also there's pollution and car accidents, and then it costs a lot of money, and you have to work harder. You have to work harder to pay for your car and the insurance and the petrol and so many things. So instead of having one problem, which is walking from A to B, now we have dozens of problems, dozens of problems. So, we're trying to counteract the miseries, but often we find the result is we just create more. Whereas in Vedic culture, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
That there, you can check the recording later on. I'm just recording it. I forgot last week. If you want to catch up on the little gap you missed, Gulshan, you can do that. It was a bit interesting. So yeah, the miseries. So in Vedic culture deals with it, and rather than trying to counteract the miseries that are there, like Western society does, it understands that the nature of the material world is miserable. You're not going to change that. It means you're not going to make the material world a fully happy place. I mean, the idea is just to arrange things to the point where you keep your body and soul together. That's what Vedic culture tries to do. Sharira Kevalam Karma. And the 5th chapter text 21, that you should just work, just do your karma, just to keep the sharira, So the body in Sanskrit is called sharira. Just to keep the body and soul together, just endeavor for that. So it understands the nature of the material world is suffering. So you're not going to change that. It's not going to become heaven. It's not going to become all fantastic, and old age is not going to go away, and disease is not going away, death is not going away. Like what some modern scientists and that would like to tell us, that they can solve death and disease and all these kind of things. But we know from the Vedas it's never going to happen. That's just the basic framework of the material world, and there's nothing nobody can do about that. However, what the Vedas tries to do instead, rather than try to make the material world into a better place, but try to get the soul out of the material world, because this is not actually our real home. We belong in the spiritual world. According to the Vedas, that the soul comes from the spiritual world, that we are Brahman. We are Brahman means we're spiritual entities. We're not material entities. We are spiritual entities from the spiritual world, where the atmosphere is, like I said, eternal and full of knowledge and bliss. So that's our real home. So rather than make this place that's not our home into like our home, then we just go back to our real home. So that's the idea in the Vedas. The example's given, if you take a fish out of the water, so the fish's home is the water. If you take them out of the water, out of their home, and put them on the land, the land is not their home. And it doesn't matter what you do for them. You give them the latest home entertainment system, the best couch, the best bed, the best fridge, nice food, everything like that, shrimp cocktail or whatever you want to give them. But they're not going to be happy because it's not their home. Then their home's not on the land. It's never going to be on the land. It's only going to be in the water. So in the same way, the soul's home is in the spiritual world, in the Vaikuntha, as explained in the Vedas in Sanskrit, Vaikuntha. Kunta means anxieties, and Vai means without. So that's the place without any anxieties. Doesn't that sound good? Would anyone like to be without anxieties? Well, that's the spiritual world. Yeah, we should develop a desire to go there. So in the Vedas, makes that the human goal. That's the topmost goal of human life, according to the Vedas, is moksha, is to get liberated from the material world. Actually, there's one more goal higher than that, which is explained by Lord Chaitanya. This is called the Purushartha, the goals of human life. The Vedas explains 4 main goals. Dharma. Dharma means like pious activities or religious activities. And then artha. So artha is economic development, and then followed by Kama is sense gratification, to satisfy the senses, and then finalized with moksha or mukti, liberation. So that's perform some pious activities, and from that develop some economically, and then from that satisfy our senses, and then after that we get frustrated with trying to satisfy the senses and want to get free, want to get freedom, liberation from the material world. So those are 4 goals explained in the Vedas. But Lord Chaitanya explained there's a 5th goal, and that's called Krishna Prema, love for God. That's love for God is even more greater than this goal of liberation. In fact, if you love God, automatically you're going to be liberated. That's a side benefit. That's a side benefit. But a devotee of the Lord is so happy in his love for God, love for Krishna, that doesn't even have an interest in liberation anymore, which is pretty far out. It doesn't even think about getting free from suffering, because as soon as you love God, you're automatically happy wherever you are, even in the material world. But even though your body is in the material world, but if your consciousness is absorbed in loving feelings for Krishna, then you're as good as in the spiritual world. You're as good as already liberated as soon as you're Krishna conscious. So yeah, we're not trying to counteract the sufferings, but understanding the nature of the material suffering. But we're trying to become Krishna conscious, trying to develop a love for God, and automatically by doing that, we forget about the sufferings and we become so absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So, and I'll just say that I mentioned we're not trying to counteract suffering. Of course, no one wants to suffer. I mean, if you get sick, you try to improve your health and things like that. So it's not that we don't do anything about it, but we don't over-endeavor. That's the point. We don't over-endeavor to counteract suffering. Of course, if you see it's raining, you carry, like Prabhupada said, you carry an umbrella. It's not that you don't do anything about it. You can do whatever's easily done. You can do that, but not over-endeavoring to counteract the suffering. Because if you spend your whole life doing that, what's going to happen? If you go through your whole life trying to counteract suffering, and trying to increase your happiness, material happiness, then what's going to happen?
When I'm going to do chanting them.
Yeah, that's right. Then what happened to your spiritual life?
Yes.
Then it goes out the window. So that's what happens. This materialistic scientists, for example, and intellectuals, instead of using their good brain to think about who am I and why am I here and where am I going and what's the purpose of my life, they're thinking about how to counteract the heat, how to counteract the cold, how to counteract the coronavirus, isn't it? Their brain is so absorbed how to counteract coronavirus.
Like you open that news.
Yeah, and they're not going to. Even if they did manage to create some immunity or whatever like that, then it'll be something else. It'll be the Iggledy-bloop virus or the Giggledy-wop virus or the whatever. It'll be something else, or it'll be some massive earthquakes or hurricanes or whatever. It'll be something, or a war, or so it's the suffering is going to come one way or another. So whatever easily you can do, you try to do that. The idea is you want to try to work in such a way to arrange your life so that it's more favorable for our spiritual practice, isn't it? That's why I personally, have made some effort to find this place where I am now, because it's very conducive to my Krishna consciousness, the chanting and the reading and eating fresh food, organic food, having pure water and air and everything like that. So it's more in the mode of goodness. Which is very conducive to our spiritual practice and Krishna consciousness like that. So, and we want to reach out to the people here and help them. And that can be done anywhere, like you're doing in Newcastle, trying to help people in Newcastle. Or you can do it anywhere in Sydney or Perth or Russia or Africa. It doesn't really matter. We can be any particular place, doesn't matter. But we should just try to arrange our life so we can live more simply and have more time for our spiritual development, our Krishna consciousness. Okay, so now we can get into this week's verse. I'll just turn some light. Okay, so this week is chapter 4, text 37. We can read the Sanskrit together. Yataid hamsi samadognir Bhasma sat kurute Arjuna Yanagni sarva kamani Bhasma sat kurute tata. And once again, Yataidamsi samidognir basmasat kurute Arjuna. I'll just read that one again. Basmasat kurute Arjuna. Yanagni sarvakamani basmasat kurute tata. See, like with that second line of the 4, where it goes kurute Arjuna, you join that together. So you say kurute Arjuna. So basmasat kurute Arjuna. Then it flows more easily. That's why they've taken the A out of Arjuna and put that little apostrophe there, so they made it silent. So then you join the two words together. Basmasat kurute Arjuna.
Oh, so when they've got the apostrophe, I always thought the A was supposed to be there, but
there is an A there, like the name is Arjuna, A-R. But to make it flow, they've made it silent. So that apostrophe is letting you know there's a silent A there. So you don't say the A, but it's there. But you don't say the A. You say basmasat kurute Arjuna, like that. And then it fits. Otherwise, it doesn't fit. It doesn't sound so good. Okay, Gulshan, you want to read the English?
Yeah. As the blazing fire turned a firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of the knowledge burns to ashes all reaction to the material activities.
So last week we had the material world, where it was had the analogy of an ocean of misery. So this week we've got another analogy. So transcendental knowledge is compared to a fire. So just like fire burns up wood, but transcendental knowledge burns up. What does it burn up? What's that?
Material knowledge.
Transcendental knowledge burns up what?
Ignorance. Activities. Material.
Yeah, burns up the reactions to material activities. Burns up all the reactions. So there's different kinds of reactions, and Prabhupada's going to explain that there's many stages of reaction in the purport. He's going to go in the purport explaining the different kinds of reactions. There's different stages there that gets burnt up by transcendental knowledge. And remember, we have talked about before that suffering is a result of sinful life. Suffering is a result of sinful life. It's impossible to be suffering unless you've done something sinful. It means unless you've broken the laws of nature. What's sinful is going against the laws of nature, going against the laws of the Supreme.
But suffering is not if you desire something and you don't fulfill a desire, you're unable to, and then you suffer. Or maybe if you fulfill the desire, then you suffer. Is it from the sinful activity?
Well, you're saying if you want something but you don't get it, then you suffer. You feel some mental
even if
suffering.
You do get it, like if I get a BMW, and then my desire was there, I signed it up, $140,000 BMW, and then it's like I didn't have that much income, and I'm suffering, working day and night in order to pay that.
Yes. So whichever way you go,
yeah.
Whether you damned if you do, damned if you don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
Either case, I'm suffering. Desire is the cause of all suffering.
Yes.
Desire.
Yeah, that's very good realization. So another analogy of the material world is compared to a prison, as we explained last week. Remember, Durga. So that's the life of the prisoners in the prison. It's a place for punishment. It's a place for punishment and suffering. So we're like the rebels that, due to our own rebellious desires for enjoyment separate from the Supreme, where we've been thrown out of the spiritual world and come into this prison house of the material world. and therefore we're getting punished in different ways, and we're suffering.
And
Just like the
sometimes
government, right? What's that, Gulshan?
what's that? Sometimes it relate to the past karma, the suffering. I mean, it's past life or past karma or something.
Yeah, I mean the suffering we're experiencing now is due to the past bad karma or sinful activities, whether it's past in this life or past in previous lives. And the activities we're doing now, if they're sinful activities, is lining us up for future suffering, either later on in this life or in the next life. So it's a whole chain reaction. And they lead to more and more reactions. The actions we do create more reactions, which create further actions, which create further reactions. So it's like a vicious cycle. Karma is a very entangling cycle. Once we enter into it, it's very hard to get out of it. But there is a way to get out of it, this karmic cycle, and of sinful action and sinful reaction, and pious action and pious reaction, all these actions. Because, of course, as we've explained, it's not just sinful actions. You've also got pious actions, which lead to pious reactions. So if the sinful reaction is suffering, what's the pious reaction?
More happiness.
Happiness. Yeah, happiness. So like I said previously, that there is some happiness in the material world, but it just goes for a short time. And those are the happiness we get is reactions to the good things we've done, to the pious activities we've done. So both are there, but the problem is they're temporary. The happiness is temporary and the suffering is temporary. So what's the recommendation in the Vedas? How to deal with this happiness and suffering is just to tolerate it. And that's in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, text number 14, a very important verse to learn if you haven't already learnt it. And second chapter, text 14. Matraspashasta kuntaya situsna sukudukadu agamapi ananachastam stiktisasva bharat. Someone want to read that?
O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance is due to cause, are like that appearance and disappearance of a winter and a summer season. They arise from sense perception, O son of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed.
So happiness is coming and going and suffering is coming and going. Nothing is permanent, it's all temporary. So what's the recommendation to do?
Just
How to deal with it? How should we deal with this comings and going of happiness and distress? Should we try to counteract it?
No, tolerate it. It just
just tolerate it. And the idea is, it's come to you now, but it's going to go. So don't have to worry about it.
I've got a problem. Like for last couple of years, just can't handle the winter in New South Wales anymore, and my joints and all that, and then how much heater I can put it on, and I can't even read the Bhagavad Gita or doing the chanting. I was thinking to moving up to the north. I mean, I can tolerate, but to the extent, and I was thinking that too. In Northern Territory, there is no temple or things like that. I just move there and distribute the Prabhupada book and just sit under the tree.
Yeah, you can. You could. I mean, in the bhakti tree, it must be pretty warm though, right? Because you're near the kitchen and then you've got the heater on and things like that. Or just at home.
At home, yeah. That's what I was noticed that, this year was, tough than the last year, and every year maybe I'm getting old and I'm not much meat on the bones. And I'm just my gas bill is going up. I said, what can we do? But it's like,
Why don't you talk to the real estate, the landlord or whatever, and ask them about putting in a wood burner?
Oh, wait. Before you go any further, I'll tell you that my house is on auction.
The house you're in?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Oh, well, the problem will be solved then.
Krishna is already preparing.
He's already prepared to move you to some other place. Maybe the next place will have
if my lease is up to the next year,
Yeah.
So he said you don't need to go, you are under the lease, and then if somebody will buy, that more likely investor, because front and the back both is for sale. Somebody investor will buy.
Yeah.
Just keep it as it is. And I said, okay.
Yeah, just go with the flow then.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can do things that improve your circulation. I mean, like yoga, right? Like what Josh teaches, that'll increase the heat of the body. I mean, there's even different pranayama, different breathing that's heating.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there is.
It's stated in several Hatha Yoga texts that one will overcome heat and cold as a result of yoga.
Yeah.
That's certainly been my experience. I enjoy the summertime much more than I used to, and I don't feel the winter anywhere near as much as I used to either.
Really?
So yeah, Josh can give you some advice about that.
How
But
much?
there's some breathing techniques also, and the exercises that help with the circulation and heat up the body and maintain that heating cooling aspect more like that.
It's also
and the fingers. Sorry.
It also comes because you reduce your identification with the body. And so the material symptoms they feel more distant, and you don't sort of as much. And I've actually found that my what's it called? My susceptibility to virus is actually much better than it ever was in my entire life. I can sort of, sometimes you will feel like a little bit of something, and it doesn't lodge itself in you as much. It kind of just passes by, just like thoughts pass you by. You don't get attached to the material so much.
Those are good points. Yeah, of course, the more we take our consciousness away from the material body, you don't notice it so much, the pleasure and pain of the body. But just another point about that, I mean, there's also foods too. Some foods are heating. So like in winter, you want to eat more foods that are heating. Like, for example, wheat is heating, rice is cooling. So it makes sense to have more rice in the summer and more wheat. And oats is heating, more wheat and oats in the winter. There's spices also, like cinnamon is heating, ginger is heating. Actually, chili is cooling. So maybe less chili in the winter and more black pepper, ginger, cinnamon, things like that. Find out heating spices. Normally sweet spices.
I was eating the dates with the hot milk and the dates. I thought maybe it's good for the winter, but somebody told that who eat the dates? I said, well, Arab something. He said that's the hottest place, so that's why they eat the dates to be cooling down. I said, oh, okay.
Okay. You can find out. You can find out a list of foods that are warming, and then I think between the exercises and some there's some breathing that heats you, and like Josh was saying about, just taking the consciousness away from the body, then you won't be affected so much, and then Krishna knows ultimately what's best for us and what we need, and he might arrange you go to some warmer place.
That's right. Yeah, because my tips or my toes and tips is like I went to the doctor. He said it's just a low blood pressure or things like that. And then I said, well, I get up 4:35 in the morning till 9 o'clock, and the temperature is still 8-9 degrees, and I turn the heater on and but still it's not really the way it should be. But anyway, I'll. Thanks. Anyway, sorry. The class.
No, it's okay. No, that's what we're talking about how to deal with happiness and distress and tolerating and so forth. Yes.
And you have
the transcendental knowledge. So suffering comes from bad karma or sinful life. And where does sinful life come from?
It's a past life. I was reading the book, The Salted Bread, how much they suffer in the prison camp in Russia.
No. Suffering comes from sinful life, bad karma. Yes. But now trace it back. Okay, so suffering comes from sin or bad karma. So where does the bad karma or sin come from?
The act we do, whatever act we've done.
Yeah, but that act, where does that come from? That you say you're drinking beer and smoking marijuana and eating meat and these are sinful acts.
My body is not healthy, of course.
So where's that coming from?
What mode you're in, is it?
From the bad association.
Okay, so which mode is that in? Is all those activities, what mode is that in?
The ignorance and passion.
Ignorance, yeah, it comes from ignorance.
Yeah.
Sin comes from ignorance. So suffering comes from sin. Sin comes from ignorance. So if you want to get free from suffering, what do you have to do?
First thing first, a good association with the devotee, and that leads to the path, and then slowly moving.
That's some of the details, but
Yeah.
You need to get out of ignorance.
you have to get out of ignorance. Yeah, because the suffering comes from sin. Sin comes from ignorance. So you have to deal with the ignorance. See, what the Westerners do, they deal with the symptom of the problem, right? Which is the suffering. But in Vedic culture, you deal with the ignorance, and automatically the suffering goes away, and the bad karma, the pap, goes away. It's only because of ignorance that we do crazy stuff, that we do bad karma. Why do we do bad karma, which leads to suffering? Because of ignorance. So if you get free from ignorance, and how do you do that? By transcendental knowledge. So transcendental knowledge, it destroys the ignorance. Knowledge in some places is compared to a weapon. Just like you have your sword, you can kill some enemy, but the knowledge is also like a sword. But with the sword, you're cutting through the ignorance. We're going to hear that analogy Krishna uses himself in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Arjuna, with the weapon of knowledge, like that. He uses that analogy. So it's like a weapon. And we are fighting against ignorance. We're fighting against ignorance with knowledge. This is how you counteract ignorance, with knowledge. It's the opposite, right? Ignorance and knowledge are opposites, just like darkness and sun. Isn't it? So actually darkness is compared to ignorance, and the sun is compared to light or knowledge. Like when the sun comes up, right, you have knowledge. You can see around you. You have knowledge of, you're able to perceive what's around you. You have knowledge, awareness. But when it's dark, you can't see anything. You have no knowledge, isn't it? You're completely ignorant. In the darkness, you're completely ignorant, isn't it? You don't know anything, what's going on. You've got no perception around you. So with the weapon of transcendental knowledge, we want to destroy this darkness of ignorance, which is causing us to do so many sinful activities, bad karma, and then suffer. Okay, so let's read the purport. Who's ready? Gulshan.
Yeah, the perfect knowledge of self and super self, and of their relationship to compare here into fire. The fire not only burns up all the reaction to impious activities, but also all the reactions to pious activities, turning them to ashes. There are many stages of reaction. Reaction in that making, reaction fructifying, reaction already achieved, and reaction a priori. What's priori? Priori, it's in Arabic, right?
It means it hasn't, the reaction hasn't come yet. The reaction hasn't, it's coming in future.
Oh, okay.
Prior means before.
Okay.
So it hasn't, the reaction hasn't come yet. It's coming, but it hasn't come yet.
Prior, okay, yeah. But the knowledge of constitutional position of the living entity burns everything to ashes. When one is in complete knowledge, all reaction, both a priori and posteriori, are consumed. In the Vedas, Brahma Ahimsa Upanishad 4.422, it is stated, Ubha Vaishva Ite Trate
Vaishya ete Pratyamrita sadvasadhuni.
One overcomes both the pious and impious reaction of the work. So that's the Shastra is a Shastra. Shastra,
yes,
Shastra.
Very good. Very good. So Shastra is the scriptures, and Shastra means weapon.
So Shastra is a Shastra.
Long A and short A. Yeah,
Yeah.
Shastra
Yeah.
and Shastra.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a weapon to fight ignorance, to defeat ignorance. So because of ignorance, we're getting all these reactions. So it's mentioned here the different stages. So action in the making. Action in the making. So that means your desire, a sinful desire has come. It's like a seed in your heart. So like how do you get the sinful desire? Like the seed. I'll give you one story from the Srimad Bhagavatam. There was one simple Brahmana is walking on the road doing some work for his father, and his name Ajamila. And he sees a prostitute embracing with some low-class man in the forest. They're, very intimately relating, sexually relating like that. So that planted the seed of sinful desire in his heart, seeing that couple engaged in that way, of course, which was very rare at that time, but now, of course, it's like a daily affair, to see boys and girls kissing on the side of the street and everything like that. So how difficult it is now. People become so disturbed. And it planted a desire in his heart to have a relationship with that girl. So he actually, with that prostitute, so he actually found her again later, and he ended up staying with her. And to maintain her, he committed all kind of sinful activities to support that low-class woman, sinful woman. And he completely degraded himself. He was a very pious person before, a Brahmana. He actually had a proper religious wife and everything like that too. So he left his wife and hooked up with this low-class lady and committed so many sinful activities. And yeah, and in the end, it was time for death coming, and the order carriers for Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, they're called the Yamadutas, the servants, order carriers of the Lord of Death, Yamaraj, they came to take away his soul to the Narakaloka, the hellish planets. But at that time, he called out the name Narayan. So that name of the Lord, it counteracted all of his sinful reactions. And then the Vishnu Dutas came, the servants of Narayan or Vishnu came, and they stopped the Yamadutas from taking his soul away. And then he got some more time in that body, actually. He didn't die. He got some more time, and he used that time to perfect himself spiritually. And he went to one sacred place in India called Badarik Ashram. Badarik Ashram, which is very high up in the Himalayas, where a lot of... what's that?
Badrinath.
I'm not sure if it's Badrinath. It's Badarik Ashram. It could be. Yeah. Maybe Josh knows. I don't know. But it's in the Bhagavatam. It's called Badarik Ashram. Maybe it's related to the modern day Badrinath. I'm not sure. But many saintly people would go there to do their sadhana, their spiritual practice. It's a real solitary place. No materialistic people there. Just devotees there, like that. And then he perfected himself, and then he died, and then the Vishnu Dutas came back, but this time to take him back to Godhead. So, but the one point I wanted to make was that just how that
desire,
action in the making is the seed. That means what makes an action. Like, we don't just think it starts with the action, we're doing something, but it actually started from a seed. Means a desire got planted in your mind, in your heart. A desire got planted in your heart. Like, say one action is, say you're doing a BSc, Bachelor of Science, but that actually started a long time before. It probably started from someone talking to you about it. that, hey man, you know, if you do a Bachelor of Science, you can get a really good job and make lots of money, and you'll really enjoy that kind of thing, and yeah, you should do it. And then the idea gets planted like a seed in your mind and your consciousness, and then you think about it. Oh yeah, should I do it? You know, it could be really good for me, and everything like that. So then you start to contemplate it, and then it gets to the point where you actually do it, where you enroll and so forth. But every action, whether it's pious or sinful, it starts from a seed, in a seed form, means in a thought. Like what's the actions of the mind? Thinking, feeling, and willing. These are different functions of the mind: thinking, feeling, and willing. So it all starts with a thought. Let's go back a bit to the second chapter, text number 62. Second chapter, text 62. So this talks about how it all starts, our activities that we do.
Wow.
Bhakti Mala, you know, read English?
While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises.
So here's the chain of events. So it started with what? Contemplating. Contemplating what? The object of the senses. So what? Say one sense is your eyes, and what's the object? Say that prostitute, right? So your senses, your eyes seeing that woman, and you contemplate it. You think about it. So it means you think about it. And then from what happens after you think about that object, then you become attached to it. And after being attached to it, what happens? Then you develop a strong desire to have it. That's called lust. Then you develop a desire. You know, I want that. And then from lust, then anger arises. How does anger come out of lust? Because you desire something. If you don't get it, you get angry. So from lust then comes, you know, frustration when you don't get it, and then that turns into anger. And then if you keep going in the next verse, what happens? Also?
From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, belovement of memory. When memory is beloved, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool.
The ocean of material miseries. That's how we end up in the ocean of miseries. It all started from contemplating the objects of the senses.
There was one story there. One yogi was meditating under the water, and he's seen that a fish mating.
Yeah, that was Subari.
And then he has to come to fulfill his desire to the planet. But that just to looking at it, he just, oh my God.
Just seeing fish mating under the water agitated his mind, just broke his meditation. And he started to think about that and become attached to the idea. Then he came out of the water and married, I think, about 100 princesses. And after many years becoming entangled in family life, he thought, how the hell did I get in this situation? I was just a yogi minding my business under the water, and now I'm a real sense enjoyer, just having lots of sex.
Right. Totally changed.
And then that's what it was. It just started from that. It just doesn't take much.
Yeah.
Just the seed. If the seed of desire gets planted in your consciousness, it can take you a mile away. So that's where that's see. But even that desire, that's also a reaction to some previous actions. You know, why did those fish have sex in front of him? Was that by chance? No, even that was part of the universal plan, which was a reaction to something he did before. Actually, see, that was a reaction. That situation he was put into of seeing the fish was a reaction to what? That he was actually meditating under the water in Vrindavan, in the Yamuna.
What's the name of that yogi?
Subari. Solbari. He was meditating in Vrindavan, so a very sacred place, a good place for meditation. And because he was under the water, he became very friendly with the fish, because he's living amongst fish, right? So why he was under the water in the first place is so that he can avoid materialistic people. That was his purpose. You know, like a lot of sages go to the forest, right? Why go to the forest? Because there's no materialists there.
But
so the same principle for being under the water. So he's obviously very powerful if he can live under the water. So he got to be friendly with the fish. So Garuda, the bird carrier of Vishnu, would sometimes come there to eat fish, because that's a natural, obviously, food for birds is fish. So Subari Muni, he got angry at Garuda, and he said, "Hey mate, leave these fish alone." So Garuda doesn't have to listen to nobody, because his boss is the supreme man, you know, so he's a servant of the big boss. So he didn't have to follow him, but he thought, oh, you know, I don't want to upset the sage. So instead of taking a whole lot of fish, he came back and he just took one fish, but that happened to be like the boss fish, like one of the chief fishes. So Subari got very upset, and he said, "Garuda, I curse you. If you ever come back here, I curse you that immediately your wings will break off and you'll die."
Oh.
Of course, that's a redundant thing to do, because he's the personal servant carrier of Vishnu, so you can't kill him. He's transcendental. He's not an ordinary bird. However, because he put a curse against Garuda, then Lord Vishnu was upset with him for doing that, so he arranged his fall down.
Yeah.
That the Lord's thinking, you know, you become proud, you become puffed up.
It's anger and the proud, and like, yeah, prashansa.
Yeah, so
That's the disaster.
So pride comes before the fall. So this was a reaction for that offense to Garuda, that these fish had sex in front of him and that he developed these desires. So even the seed of desire planted in our mind is a reaction from some previous materialistic activity. So you've got the seed of the action, and then after that, so it said here, action in the making. That's the first one, reaction in the making. Then reaction fructifying. So it means you haven't got the reaction yet. You've already got the desire, but the reaction hasn't come yet. It's fructifying, it's growing. Like the seed, right? You put the seed in the ground and it's starting to sprout. It hasn't come up above the ground yet, but it's starting to grow. And reaction already achieved. So that was like Ajamil, when he hooked up with this prostitute, and he started to suffer. And then eventually, you know, the Yamadutas came. So that means he's achieved the reaction. He's got the reaction. He's suffering. So the reaction means you're suffering. You're suffering. So that's the reaction. And then in one form of another. And then the reaction a priori means the suffering happened previously. So you've gone past that. So that means you've suffered, and then there'll be more actions in the making. So more seeds of desires coming in. So you've got the seed of desire, you've got it fructifying, and then you're getting the reaction, and then you've already had the reaction, and you're starting off with another whole set again. So it's like a vicious cycle. But as it's mentioned here, the transcendental knowledge, it burns to ashes all of those. It doesn't just burn up the suffering, which is the reaction, which is suffering, but it burns up the desire. It burns up the desire to commit sinful action. And that's the real one you want to get to. Because if you just keep dealing with the reactions, but you don't deal with the seed of desire, then it's going to keep sprouting up again and again.
It's like a rakta bija, that the drop of the blood and everything goes, and there is a new demons comes out. You know the story for that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Same like with the gardening, right? There's some plants have a deep root. If you just break the top off, but you don't get at the root, it's going to come up again. So unless you get the desire, the sinful desire, then it's going to keep popping up again. So transcendental knowledge is so powerful that it burns up all the reactions and the seed, and also not only the impious or sinful reactions, but also pious reactions, which lead to happiness. So why would you want to burn up your piety? Why would you want to burn up your material happiness, your pious reactions? Is there any problem with material happiness and material piety?
It's getting a pride and ego. So even if you got the pious, it's still not good. It's like if somebody is praising you, it's not good either, because that's where the seeds come, that you get praised, and then you feel like, oh yes, I'm the boss.
Yeah, it can make us, because of that, because we're feeling happy, the tendency has become proud. And like what happened with Subari, then he became proud, and then he fell down. He made offences to others, like Garuda in that case. That's the big problem with pride, is that when we become proud, we tend to abuse other people. And as soon as we act abusively and put other people down, or other animals or so forth, then immediately you get reactions. But also the problem with pious reactions is that what's the result of piety will be that you go to heaven. But that's also temporary. So we don't want that either. Just like we don't want to suffer and go to hell, so we don't want to have material happiness in heaven either, because it's still in the material world, and they still grow old there and get sick and die, and they still have problems with envy and pride and so forth. It's said that Indra, he's the king of heaven, right? He's got the most facility of enjoyment in heaven. He's the king of heaven, and yet he's always in anxiety that some demons are going to come and attack him and kick him out. Actually, it's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam many times Indra and the demigods have been thrown out of heaven by the asuras, by the demons. Like, for example, Bali Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj's son, threw Indra and the demigods out of heaven, and Hiranyakashipu created great problems for the demigods. And so even in the heavenly planets, they're so afraid and so many anxieties, and they have issues with envy. They're envious of sages and things like that, who are potentially becoming rivals for their position. Yes.
I'm sorry, what's an example of the pious activities though? Like what are we talking about?
Yeah, like performing sacrifices, like fire sacrifices. That's a pious activity. And giving charity to different organizations, welfare organizations. That's pious activity. And performing austerities.
The one you're doing at the Bhakti tree, Seva.
Yeah, that's different. That's for the pleasure of Krishna. But
pious activities are still for our own pleasure, are they?
Ordinarily, people do those things for the purpose of enjoying future happiness. So they'll perform sacrifices, because it's a pious activity, it'll bring them future happiness, or they'll give charity to the poor or so forth, and they'll perform austerities, do some fasting, stand on their tippy toes with their hands in the air, and, do so many things like that, so that they get future happiness. That's their idea. Yeah. Let me perform these pious activities now. Example, sacrifices, austerities, and charity, and I'll get some future happiness in heaven. I'll go to heaven, enjoy happiness there. But the problem is it's just temporary. Even if they go to heaven, it's just for 10,000 years, and then they're going to fall back down. When the results of your pious activities run out, you fall back down to earth again and go. So it's like a Ferris wheel, up and down, up and down, up and down, material. Up to the higher planets, and the middle planets, and the lower planets, and the middle planets, and the upper planets, and the middle planets, and the lower planets, so this is samsara, the cycle of birth and death. So, as Krishna says in the 8th chapter, let's quickly have a look at that, text 14. Not 14. 16. Yeah, 8th chapter, text 16. Who wants to read that? Who gets there first?
From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter where you go in the material world. If you do pious activities, you'll go to the highest planet. But even the highest planet is a place of misery. And the lowest planet is also a place of misery. So Krishna is giving a definite instruction here to everyone that it doesn't matter where you go in the material world, it's a place of misery. You can't escape in the material world. Just repeated birth and death going to take place everywhere. So the real solution is not to do pious activities or sinful activities. We shouldn't care about either of them. We should just focus on devotional activities, on bhakti yoga. We should just do work in devotion. So that's the recommendation. Otherwise, it's a complete waste of time.
No chance.
No chance. So that's the result of pious activities, is go to heaven for some short time and get some temporary sense gratification there too. And it's just a distraction. If you get a lot of sense gratification, it's going to be hard to practice Krishna consciousness. Actually, it's said the earth is the best place for spiritual life, because it's not too much enjoyment and not too much suffering. Both is difficult. You try to practice Krishna consciousness while you're being tortured in hell. Good luck. And you try to chant 16 rounds there, and you try to chant 16 rounds when you got beautiful half-dressed women roaming around that are like 10,000 times more beautiful than Miss Universe here on earth, and food that's divine, and for Gulshan to be in ecstasy. It's not too hot, not too cold.
Is it hard in Kali Yuga? In the Kali Yuga, it's harder. Like we are in the Kali Yuga, like a Treta Yuga and the Dwapar Yuga. That time was easier than Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is harder because.
Yeah, I mean harder in one sense. Yes, there are many obstacles in Kali Yuga, but you can get the best result the most quickly in Kali Yuga. So it's actually the best time, because Kali Yuga doesn't last. I mean, our lifespan in Kali Yuga is only 100 years max.
Oh, if you're lucky.
If you're lucky. So maybe within 50 years, 60 years, you can go back to Godhead. If you just chant Hare Krishna, follow Lord Chaitanya's movement, if you can just chant Hare Krishna in this Kali Yuga, you can go back to Godhead in 50, 60 years. But in Satya Yuga, everyone's a sage. There's no demons and everything like that. It's not too hot, not too cold. There's all natural fruits and living in the forest, and there's no cities and distractions, so forth. But it'll take you 100,000 years.
Ooh.
That's your lifespan, 100,000 before you go back to Godhead. So now you can go back to Godhead in 50 years, not 100,000. Or in Treta Yuga, 10,000 years. Or Dwapara, you go 1,000 years. But now you can go back to Godhead in 5, 10, 15. I mean, if you chant Hare Krishna for 5 years and then die, you can go back to Godhead. So I mean that we have hit the jackpot. I mean, at the same time, there's illicit sex going on, meat eating, intoxication, cows being killed, crazy stuff going on. But somehow or other, if you can just focus on chanting Hare Krishna, take prasadam, be with devotees, you're getting out of here real quick. So, and also, there's some suffering there, which is an impetus to take the spiritual life. And then the hellish planets is too much suffering to become Krishna conscious. It's too difficult. And in heavenly planets is too much enjoyment to become Krishna conscious. It's very hard. Too much sense gratification. So here on earth it's said to be it's just perfect. It's not too much happiness to distract us and not too much suffering to distract us. So we're in the best place at the best time. We're on the best planet and the best time, the best age to get the best result, to go back home, back to Godhead. And so we give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself a pat on the back.
Yeah. Association with the devotee.
Yeah, and if you have association with devotees, and then it becomes very easy, very enjoyable to do the process when you have the association of devotees. So very fortunate. And of course, the real benefit of association with the devotees is they give you transcendental knowledge. As we've said, that's why we've talked about recently about the spiritual master. Because where do you get the transcendental knowledge from? From the spiritual master. It means from the devotees, someone that's a devotee. So if you're fortunate enough to have the association of devotees, and even, you're getting association of devotees, why? Why you? Why not your neighbor out the back, Gulshan? It's a reaction. It's also a reaction to something very pious that we've done. Very pious that we've done. See, it's one thing that comes from something else. Nothing is by chance. Everything happens for a reason. I remember that when I was very young, a vegetarian friend of mine, he said, there's far out vegetarian pies in Queen Street. We should check it out. So I went there and it was Gopal's. And that was my first time I had prasadam in this life. And what did that lead to? Oh, no, before that. Where did that come from? When I was younger, my mum used to get from the flea market lots of books because Dad and me were avid readers. In one box of books, she bought back A Science of Self-Realization. And I was so young at the time, I didn't read it, but I was just blown away by the picture of Prabhupada. And also by the picture of Mahavishnu in it, with 4 arms and universes coming out of his skin pores, and he's blue. And that just stuck in my mind, and I appreciated that. And the reaction to that was that I got prasadam. And then what was the reaction of having prasadam? Within a year or so after that, I met the first devotee. Wow. And then I joined. So one thing leads to another thing, How I got the good fortune to get the book, I don't know. Maybe I did something good. I did something good in the previous life or earlier or whatever, something that gave me the good fortune, got the reaction of getting a book. It's not just anybody can take to Krishna consciousness. It's of course anyone can, but anyone doesn't, because there has to be some piety there. You've got some good fortune, good credits there. And that's why you met the devotees. That's why you got the prasadam. That's why you can chant Hare Krishna. Is these are all reactions.
That's why we are in the class.
What's that?
That's why we are here in the class.
That's why in the class, and the other 99.9% of people in Newcastle aren't, like that. So, and the devotees are so dear to Krishna because they're ones that are planting the seed in others' hearts, that are starting off their pious life. You know, they're going out there and chanting, and they're going out there and distributing books and prasadam and giving others the opportunity to plant the seed of bhakti. It's called the bhakti lata bij. So just like there's the bij, the seed of sinful desire, and there's the seed of pious desire, so there's also the seed of devotional service, and that is given by the devotees. So even those that are not qualified, not eligible, those that are sinful people that don't deserve it, but the devotee tries to give them bhakti, you know, and that's their mercy. That's the mercy of the devotees, trying to help people that they deserve to go to hell, but they're trying to help them to come out of that, try to help them to get out of this material world. That's their bhakti. Interesting. Does anyone have anything they want to say about this part?
No, it's all clear.
No, I know, but I had another question about another part of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, sure. Yeah, that's okay.
So I've just finished chapter 10. I have read it, but I'm reading it again. It seems like I'm reading a different book the second time, but anyway.
Yeah, that's a good thing, isn't it? Because your eyes are opening to more things that you didn't see before, right?
Yeah.
You think, how come I didn't see that before?
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Because your consciousness is expanding. So as your consciousness expands, you're going to perceive more things than what you did before, which is fantastic, which is great.
Anyway,
Yeah.
So in chapter 10, text 21, they talk the 12 adityas.
12 adityas, yes.
And I tried to look it up, but I didn't really understand what they are, because it says that there are 12 adityas, of which Krishna is the principal.
Yeah, they're demigods. They're a particular class of demigods. And they come from Aditi is the mother. Aditi.
Yeah.
Aditi is the mother of some of the demigods. And she was married, Aditi was married to a sage named Kashyapa. And one of their sons was Vamanadev, the dwarf incarnation. So that's what he's saying, that of their ditches I am Vishnu. So that particular form of Vishnu, he was known as Vamana. So he's Vishnu, he's God, but he was known as Vamana. Vamana means dwarf, means very short. So he appeared in a very short form.
Yeah.
And he's the one that begged charity from Bali Maharaj, because we mentioned about Bali Maharaj, who was one of the Daityas, one of the demons. So Bali Maharaj had kicked Indra out of heaven, and then Indra's mother, Aditi, performed austerities and prayed to Vishnu to please help them out to get her son back in Svargaloka, in heaven. And so the Lord Vishnu appeared as Vamanadev, and he tricked Bali Maharaj into surrendering his kingdom. He begged 3 steps of land. He's also known as Trivikrama. Trivikrama means with 3 steps. Tree means 3. So in 3 steps, he covered the entire universe and a little bit more. So he tricked Bali Maharaj out of his kingdom and got it back for Indra. So that's what he's saying of Adityas, I am Vishnu. So that's referring to, of the Adityas, means there's 12 Adityas. So there's 12 brothers there, of which Krishna is the principal. And Krishna is known, as I mentioned, as Vamana, which you can read that in the 8th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, is the pastime of Vamanadev. So there's basically Adityas, they're the sons of Aditi. So that's the mother is Aditi. So she's the mother of the demigods. So one of the sons is Indra. So Vamanadeva, you could say, is Indra's brother. Like that. So Vishnu appeared in that form to help Indra and Indra's mother to get the kingdom back. So Krishna's always protecting the devotees, or demigods, you could call them. Always protecting them. So that answers that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, some people say, oh, I can't see God. And what do you mean you can't see God? We can see God everywhere. And in this way. Like it's saying here, I am the radiant sun. What, you don't see the sun? Yeah, so we are learning to see God through seeing his energies. Through seeing his energies. So every time you see the sun, you can remember the Supreme Lord. Every time you see the moon at night, you can see the Supreme Lord. These are just different energies of the Lord. Like another one says, I am the taste and water. So every time you taste water, you can think this is the energy of the Lord. Like it says in the 7th chapter, right? My 8 energies: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So every time you taste water, water is an energy of the Lord. You remember the Lord, isn't it? You should. This is the way we've got to train ourselves to connect everything with the Lord. Remember, we just read what's the culmination of the teaching you get from the Guru? Question. What's the culmination of the teachings you get from the spiritual master? What does it culminate in? What realization will you have when you've graduated?
The Guru is like,
Look, 4th chapter, text 35. We just read it. 4th chapter, text 35. That all things are but part of the Supreme. In other words, that they are mine. You'll never again fall into illusion, seeing that everything is part of the Supreme. Or in other words, that they are mine. So it's all energies of the Supreme. Just like it's so easy to understand. It's just so easy to get it, even if we've got a Kali Yuga brain. Just like if you see the sunshine, then you know the sun's there. You don't have to see the sun.
You don't need any verification.
You don't need any verification other than the sunshine.
That's it.
If the sunshine is there, it means the sun must be there. So if you're seeing the energies of God, you've seen God. You know God's there. Right? But just like the sun is actually 3 things. You've got the sunshine and the sun planet, and you've got the sun God. So you know that you've seen the sunshine, you see the sun planet, you know there must be a sun God also. There must be a controller, and there must be someone in control. You think that everything is just going automatically here, so perfectly organized? The seasons are going so organized, the tide is so organized, all the foods that we need to eat to survive is all organized for us. There's fruits and vegetables and grains and nuts, and it's all there. Everything we need is here. Is that all happening just by chance? There's someone in control.
They can't make it that in the factory, like in an apple, they cannot make in the factory. They cannot make mango in the factory. It'll just come from the earth, water, sun, nighttime, moonlight, whichever comes that, and then get that. And then like the same sun in the summer, it's give you 40 degrees, and the same sun in the winter, we love to stand in there.
Yeah.
It's, it's just, what is it?
And if you didn't get the 40 degrees, then you wouldn't have a nice ripe mango.
That's
right.
So
you need to have that 40 degree.
Oh, that's right. This is all that.
So everything's there for a reason. It means there's some great brain behind it all, some great intelligence behind it all. So like that, by deeply contemplating all this energy around us, this material world, of course, everything is made up of energy. So, but these are different energies: earth, water, fire, air. It's all energies. Just like we have like electricity is an energy. So water is also an energy, and sunshine is an energy. So it's just different. But then we need to think, where do the energies come from? Just like electricity, right? It's an energy. But does it just exist by itself? No, just go down the wire. Follow the wire, Gulshan. Follow the wire. Where will you end up? You'll probably end up in Singleton. That's where there's a power station in Singleton.
And that also run by the dam with the water.
Yeah, that too. But also not just there at the power station. You go inside the power station. What are you going to find?
Oh, big transmission and like, that's, I'll be lost in there.
Yeah, but you still haven't said that what's the main thing you're going to find in there. What's the most important part of that whole electrical subject matter?
Light.
No.
Light, I'm getting there, but where I'm getting that is just from the, there'll be hydraulic, like
the main thing is not the power, the light bulb. The main thing is not the wire. The main thing is not the power station. The main thing is the engineer.
Engineer, okay, yes.
Without the engineer, you don't have anything else.
That's right.
But without all that other stuff, you've still got the engineer. See, the engineer exists without all that stuff. But all that stuff doesn't exist without the engineer. So without the supreme controller, you don't have anything else.
True.
But the supreme controller exists without all this stuff. Like Krishna doesn't need any of this stuff in the material world. But it all comes from him. But by understanding all this different energies, we can understand something about the nature of the Supreme, that there is a Supreme exists and what the nature of the Supreme is. We can know that God exists just by observing the energy around us every day. Yeah. So who doesn't taste water? Who doesn't smell the fragrance of the earth? Who doesn't see the sunlight or the moonlight? Who doesn't feel the heat of the fire? So we all experiencing these things, but what's the problem is we're not connecting them. But the knowledge we get from the guru, the spiritual master, is how to connect them. He just joins the dots. Had that game, right?
Yeah.
There's that game, join the dots.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got all the dots, but we haven't joined them. But we need the guru to say, look, you join it from this dot to this dot, and then it connects up to Krishna.
Okay, the guru is the owner of the Lego. Lego?
Yes.
Okay. But if we don't get a night, like a moon doesn't come, if the sunshine all the time, then we can't sleep. If the sun doesn't set.
That's right.
It has to be set and the moon comes.
Yeah, so you can just think, what a perfect arrangement. That this darkness is there to give us a time, the body to recharge like that. But we just have to think deeply about nature around us, and we can realize God just from that even. Of course, we're very fortunate. Prabhupada has directly directed us towards, here's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His name's Krishna. He lives in Vaikuntha. Like that detail is so much detail. But otherwise, even just for those persons that are not ready to accept the process of bhakti, but if just by studying nature, they can realize that there must be a Supreme Being. There must be an intelligent person behind it. We'll just finish off that, there was Sir Isaac Newton, very intelligent, a scientist. He's actually God conscious. And he had one atheistic friend who didn't believe that there's a God behind the creation of the universe and like that. He just thought it all happens by chance and by material combination of chemicals and so forth, evolution and so many things. So one day the atheist came to Isaac Newton's house, and there was a big table with a fantastic model of the universe with all the planets and their orbits and everything like that, a fantastic model of the universe. And the atheist said, wow, this is the most amazing model of the universe I've ever seen. Wow, who made it? Isaac said, nobody. Oh, what do you mean? You know, someone made it. Who made it? And Isaac said, no, it just happened by chance. Oh, come on. That's ridiculous. That's the most ridiculous thing that anyone's ever said. And then Isaac said, well, you say that the real universe, which is unlimitedly more complicated than this model, that there's nobody in control and nobody made it. And then the guy got it. The atheistic guy got it. You know, so even on the small scale, how complicated things are. Like how many big brains are there just to keep Newcastle going? That made Newcastle. How many people are there behind the making of Newcastle or the maintaining Newcastle? So many. And yet we don't even allow one person to be there that made the universe and maintaining the universe. We're just so stupid. We say we're scientific and logical, but we act in such an illogical way. So this is real intelligence, is learning how to connect all these different energies and seeing where they come from the supreme person. Supreme person. What do you think? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, just talk about it in a logical way, and you can understand there must be. Just through logic and reasoning, you can understand there must be a God, a supreme controller. But what we're finding out in Krishna consciousness is that he's not just a controller. We're finding out that he's very attractive and very loving. And this is what makes Krishna consciousness so special, so sweet. As we're not, I mean, other spiritual organizations also have an understanding that there is a supreme controller. And in Sanskrit, the word is Ishvara. Ishvara means controller. And the West, I mean, we say God. And in Sanskrit, we say Ishvara. But Krishna's more than just Ishvara, controller.
Ishvara and a Bhagwan is the same? What we say?
Bhagavan means the Parameshvara.
Oh, okay.
The supreme controller. There's many controllers, but Bhagavan is the supreme controller. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Savakarana Karanam in Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama. So there's supreme control. There's many controllers, Ishvara, but there's the Parama, one supreme. That's Krishna. Satchidananda Vigraha. His form is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. Anadir. Anadir means he has no origin, no beginning.
No
Anadi.
end.
Anadi, no beginning. Anadir. Adir. Adir. He is the beginning. He has no beginning, but he is the beginning of everything. Anadir Adir Govinda Sava Karana Karanam. He's the cause of all cause. Karana. He's the cause of all causes. Sava Karana. He's the cause of all causes. Like that. This is Lord Brahma's realization in the Brahma Samhita. So but what we can realize from Krishna consciousness and Bhakti Yoga, more than just he's a supreme controller, but he's our supreme friend or our supreme child or supreme lover. He's the very best friend we can have, the best child we can have, the best lover we can have. So this is where bhakti comes in, loving relationship, more than just awe and reverence, that there is this great God that controls everything. No, that bhakti, more overriding those feelings of awe and reverence, is the feelings of love and devotion for Krishna is so attractive, attracting our hearts, that we want to have a loving relationship with Krishna in different ways. If we want to have a loving relationship with Krishna as a friend, like Arjuna, he'll be that for us. If we want to have a loving relationship with Krishna as a child, then he'll be like that for us, like Nanda and Yashoda and Devaki and Vasudeva were parents of Krishna. And if you want to have him as a conjugal loving relationship, like Radharani, Lalita, Vishaka, Rukmini, Satyabhama, like that, Chandravali, like that, so many queens and consorts and gopis and that, then he'll reciprocate with you in that way. He'll reciprocate just according to your desire. So it's very wonderful to understand these different flavors of Krishna consciousness. And then we won't need the prostitute anymore. Getting back to that. Then our hearts will be fully satisfied. Then our hearts will be fully satisfied. So that's what we want to feel, that in our heart. Feel that we have a tremendous propensity to want to be loved and want to give love. So the only person that can truly satisfy that's Krishna. Otherwise we have a vacant heart. That's a big problem that we have in today's world. People have, a pocket full of money and so forth, and a big house and a big car, but their heart is vacant. Their heart is void, is empty. No love. But someone that connects with Krishna, they're... What's that?
Instead of love, they got a lust.
Yeah, which is like a burning fire, which we're going to be reading that. That's coming next, is the blazing fire of lust.
I quickly tell you that, but next door there are 7-Eleven, the Kolvinda. I can see that in front of my shop on the phone. He was going 2-3 times, and I said to come in. What are you going up? Said, look, you going on the phone. You going there? He said, no, I'm going to the hairdresser. I've been there twice. There, I want to make an appointment for my haircut. And then I said, what are you going, man? Look, there's a bread saloon. Just put that here. And what are you worried about? I've got a clipper here. Bread saloon does the job. You don't need to worry about the shampoo, no brushing the hair. Don't stand in front of the mirror. Just jump in the shower, get out, put the t-shirt on your 7-Eleven. He said, oh, no, I take care of my hair very well. This is. I said, what for? You can't take it with you. Not even one needle. What are you doing, man? Yeah. And then he just looked at me and I said, look at it. Jagannath is here. So just you have to just do that and one less thing to worry about it. He said, oh, he's not getting me an appointment. This. I said, you're paying that, waiting for that, get frustrated. I've got an easy solution. But he didn't get it.
He hasn't come to that realization yet. Yeah. Still in the enjoyment mode.
Yeah, I think so. And then one day, he had a 3 7-Eleven. And then I said, Prabhuji, what are you doing, man? You have to offload your baggages. And you say, oh, I've got this pain, this sickness, this. I say, you're collecting all that. You just have it on your shoulder. You say, oh, I did the hard labor money. How can I let go? I say, you will let go one day. I'll take you to Sandgate Cemetery. Sit down there. And all questions get answered. You can't. He said, oh, hard labor money. How can I let go? So you gotta be let go one day when the knock in the door, time to go.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have to let go, but just has to be regulated.
Minimize it.
The Bhagavad Gita's 6th chapter, text 17 recommends just to be regulating your work. Don't overdo it. Don't over-endeavor. So, right. Over-endeavoring. It doesn't say don't work, but it says don't over-endeavor. Just work just enough to pay the bills.
What you need, that's it. The tiger, when they're hungry, he get up and hunt and eat it and sit down. If any rabbit passing by, he didn't kill them. Yeah. And then he get up again when he get hungry again.
Yeah.
So whatever you need, that's it.
Yes.
enough for your need, but like anyway.
When you've got your 2 rotis on the table, that's enough.
That's enough. A little bit of rice and dal, done deal.
Yeah.
That if nobody understands, I can give you the book for Radhanath Swami. You read it, you know it.
But it's only possible. It's only possible for people to be satisfied materially if they have that inner satisfaction. So it's very important as aspiring devotees. We all need to try our best to get that spiritual connection, to chant nicely, really attentively chant, and try to, hear about Krishna like what we're doing now, or read Prabhupada's books and really relish the prasadam, nicely prepare with love prasadam. And this will give us, and have nice association with devotees, loving exchanges with devotees. And this will give us that spiritual satisfaction, this inner satisfaction. And then when you feel that satisfaction from inside, you won't be craving for it from outside. Because people don't have the inner satisfaction. They're looking outside. I've got to try to fill that void inside. But they don't realize you can't fill that empty heart with material things. That is only filled by the love for God. But they're trying to do that. But we also, if we don't have that inner satisfaction, then we're also going to materially be dissatisfied. So we want to really, like I was always told when I joined, you get into the fire of Krishna consciousness. Talking about fire again, and this is another analogy, that Krishna consciousness compared to a fire. So, to really go into the fire of Krishna consciousness, and that will burn up all our material desires. If we really chant nicely and associate nicely and hear nicely the classes and things, that will burn up all those material hankerings and
Maya will test you time to time. Maya will test you time to time.
Yes.
I thought is that. And then I said, what is it? Like, it's just a, and then I was like, just doing my chanting and all that. But like, all of a sudden the phone call coming and like, the friends wants to associate with them. I said, no, I'm okay. That's fine. But I noticed that like, they were like, I don't know, they through the Maya, they come and testing that, or have these things like.
You can see it as a test from Maya or a test from Krishna. Either way, we're being tested by our.
Is the shield of Krishna.
Yeah.
And doesn't let you go to the Krishna. Maya is the shield.
This is part of the purification.
Yeah,
it's like at school, right? Every school has exams, has tests. The tests actually make us better. I mean, it puts us in anxiety and stress, but through that's how we improve. So the same we have when we come into this prison house of the material world, then we've got to go through this purification system. There's going to be tests, and then they're checking out. Well, how are you going with your material desires?
Knowledge, yes.
How are you going with your surrender to Krishna?
Yes.
How surrendered are you going to? I'll put you in the situation. Are you going to surrender to Krishna, or are you going to surrender to Maya? Are you going to serve Maya, or are you going to serve Krishna? Like that. So this is we have to be tested, because that's the only way you're going to see your progress.
I mean,
is when you're tested. Otherwise, anyone can look like a devotee when things are good. But, put that person into some difficulty and then see what kind of person they are.
Yeah, that's true. When I was driving an Uber, I've been tested every day with every customer, different kinds of customers sitting in the car. I've been tested every day, and then all I just want to be like my psychology or like a philosophy of my life, that to be just compassionate. No matter what they think, they've asked the question of that, Shika, and that. I just
that's good for them.
Answer that every day. I've been tested. I don't drive anymore. But my mission has been fulfilled. I don't need that any more money. So, but every day it's like I've been tested. That they were asking that. I just whatever my knowledge is, I just answer that. Some they agree, some they not agree, some they they arguing that, and I just humbly just say that that's it. It's like I don't need to be arguing with the Mayavadi, but they ask every day. I get tested.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's life.
Good.
Okay. It's
You know, Chanakya Pandit says the definition of material happiness is those persons that don't have to travel to work and don't have any debts. So that's good. You wiped out your debts, so you'll be more materially happy now.
Two things: if you don't have any debts, and walk to work.
Yeah, and you don't have to travel much to work.
That's right. Yeah. So
not only you're spiritually happy, but materially happy also.
You'll be internally happy. Like you won't be having any burden. Like you would not. I wouldn't see like Sometimes I can see the Devari talking to his wife and like oh, my daughter and the wife and things like things like that. And then I'm just listening and chanting and just like that. And even Bhakti Mala is more. She's got a very less responsibility. It's wonderful. She's the happiest person.
Oh, good.
Free.
And she's our new pastry chef. She made that a carrot cake the other day. She made the vegan cupcake, vegan brownie. She's a pastry chef.
Yeah. I'm missing out over here. I'm really lamenting. I'm not getting carrot cake. Carrot cake.
Yeah, she do all the vegan items: vegan carrot cake, vegan brownies, vegan cupcakes. So, which is good, She's and then offered to the Jagannath. Jagannath happy, we are happy, and Jagannath dribble that in this cupcake, and that means Bhoga.
Yeah.
That's Prashadam.
Yeah.
That's good, actually.
You just got to keep seeing the smiling face of.
Yeah, she smiled less. I don't know why. I'm just smiled too much. Take half of mine. I'm just all the time laughing. Look like marijuana.
She's sober. This is called sober. She's sober, Dira.
All right.
Sober grave.
It's I think my
Are you talking about me?
Oh,
yeah, sober
doesn't.
Sober. I'm not just meaning not inebriated, not intoxicated. But sober means just very, very
nature of the person. Like your nature of preaching, no matter what you do, even if you do farming, you may be preaching to someone who's next to you do farming because it's your nature. You cannot get out of your basic nature no matter what. Even if you try, and then Krishna will pull you back and put it in your actual nature. If somebody is a juggler, and then no matter he wants to do as a customer service, over there he must be juggling with the pens. Yeah. Because that's his nature. Yeah. It's like, and then forcefully it has to, even if you work in the factory, he'll get a two things and start juggling there because that's his nature. The Bhakti Mala nature is that just a quiet, like a calm river. You can see through all the stone under that. I'm the muddy water running around that like a Ganges. You can't see anything.
Mm.
Yeah, our energies are very, very different. Gulshan's like he's in such a hurry all the time.
Lunch was very busy, and then all was just running, and in 2 hours we make like nearly $700 in 2 hours. So can you imagine how busy? Run out the plates and all that, and then.
That's on what day? What day was that?
Today lunch, Wednesday lunch, Thursday lunch, today lunch.
Really?
Yeah, just all of a sudden, it's just really hard to say when it's gonna busy. When it's busy, then I'm just running like, just like my sixth sense comes out and.
He runs like that when there's two people in the place, though. He's always like that, He's always doing everything really fast.
Like when in the cafe as well, I was the same. It's nothing much I can do. It's a nature.
Yeah. So the main thing is whatever the nature is, to use it in Krishna's service.
That's right. That's Krishna's service. Anyone coming into Bhakti tree has to have a prasadam. That's it. Yeah. And today there's the one guy that he regularly come, and then we're talking about just general. And today when he left, he said Hare Krishna. Hey, Bhakti Mala.
Yeah, he did.
He's a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
And now slowly I'm gonna give it one Bhagavad Gita next week to him.
Yeah, nice. That's success. Yeah.
Yeah, like all you got to do just to be humble, and then if somebody will say that, Jagannath is there, we offer the food to Jagannath first.
Yes.
I asked him to come to Kirtan too the other week, so maybe he'll come.
There is a reason I will come, but you have to wait because I'm practicing Mridanga. Once I'll be coming.
We have a Madunga playing now anyway, because Gail plays Madunga.
Oh, okay.
Seriously?
She just picked it up the other day and just started
Yeah.
playing, and she actually had a good beat. So
You must be trying at home or something. I'm trying on the internet and learning.
How is Gail? I haven't seen her for a while. How's she doing?
really good. Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, wonderful. Busy here and there. She goes to Tari as well, seeing the patients.
Yeah.
Just general stuff.
So you haven't advertised the Friday night yet? You're just still doing a small thing?
Yes, Saturday night they do that just maybe an hour or so, the Kirtan
Oh,
Mahabharata.
Saturday night. Okay, you're doing it on Saturday night. Not Friday night.
We're
Yeah.
not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's okay.
It's only a few words, but it's really nice.
Good, very intimate.
Yeah. It's really
Gail's there, you're there.
deep.
Yeah.
Is,
Deepa's there. Okay.
Geeta
How's
is-
Deepa?
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah.
Good.
Everything's
Nice.
good. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm so happy to hear things are going very well there.
Yeah, it
Considering
is going very well, but we got
restrictions.
a bit of a concern that both chef wants to go to India next month. That's the thing.
Yeah,
The
I mean, I was seeing that in the cards anyway. I knew it's very unsustainable. We're relying on importing people. So
Yeah.
Krishna's just made it clear that he's pulling the carpet out
That's
on
right.
that one. So
Krishna-
the local devotees just have to organize everything themselves. Don't rely on anyone else. And
Yeah.
I mean, we can't rely on anyone else anymore. And it was foolish that ISKCON had been set up in that way for so many years. We should never have done that. But now Krishna forcibly is stopping us from doing that artificial.
It's
way.
all Krishna's arrangement there. Last week I seen that the Khana,
Yeah.
the person that
Yeah.
came there on Monday, Bhakti Vinod Thakur's appearance day to the temple.
Oh,
And-
okay.
And we were there at the temple, and then Kalya Prabhu was talking that, and so well, that could be the reason that he came here. He talked to his son. His son was interested some stage when you were here,
Yes.
and then they were talking. It's like Krishna's arrangement is there. We
Yeah.
can't see that, but he
Yes.
definitely had an arrangement. We got a Jagannath. We would definitely open the door. Door's not gonna get closed, definitely.
But I mean,
Or
you
talk-
already know. You already.
local.
I'm confident you can do all the things, except the only thing I'm not sure that you guys know about between you is the curries, the subjis. So
But we
you got to
have-
just work on that. Just work
Yeah.
on that.
We got a Taushan. He's very good cook, and he comes in often that comes to Bhakti Tree, and then we see.
Yeah, but you can't run a restaurant on someone that lives in Central Coast, and depending on they're going to come all the way to Newcastle.
No, it's like wow. He wasn't living in the Central Coast 5 years. He run the Govindas in the Newcastle.
I know, but you think he's going to quit his job at the taxi to
Oh,
do
he
that?
hasn't got, and like he's got a what? He does only Friday, Saturday night or Friday night taxi. That's it. The rest of the week, nothing. So whatever he earn in the taxi, you might as well give it to there.
Yeah, okay,
It's
but I
not
mean,
so much
like,
wrong.
what
All
if
the
what
kids
if
are-
his what
all
if
the
the
kids are
train
moving out.
doesn't run one day or the car breaks down
Yeah.
or whatever? You don't want to rely on him either. I mean, it's good if he can. I mean, that's great.
His all
Because he
kids are
can do
moved out. He live alone. He can live in Newcastle.
I know his situation very well. I've known him since 1993.
Yeah.
So that's all right. But I'm saying it's good if one amongst you at least learns some of the curries
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
and make the curries, the dals.
Like she's entering the kitchen. Hopefully, she might pick up some. Today she was in the kitchen.
I'd love to. I'd love to. learn
Do
how-
it. You have all my blessings, and if you need me to put a word into anyone,
Krishna
I'm
is with you,
happy to do that.
Bhakti. Go for it. Jagannath is with you.
But yeah, I'm sure Brett will be very happy to do that, to support that, and all you have to do is request the cooks. I mean, the cooks know they're going, so they know they have to hand it over.
That's
So
the problem.
they know they have to hand it over. So you should just ask them, please, I want to learn these dals and curries from you. Please teach me. If they have any reluctance, then you should get Brett to pressure them. But it shouldn't need to be any pressure because they know they're going.
It's
Just
not a
don't,
rocket
I
science.
don't think I've got enough time though. This thing.
Well, I would put aside these other things, cakes and
Yeah, because
cookies
the
and that,
cakes and all, they're not important.
because you can run a bhakti tree without cakes and cookies,
Yeah.
but you can't run it without
the
subjis, without the curries.
I don't think I could learn it in a month. Well, there've been
I'm sure you can.
You can.
so like
Sure.
Yeah, but you know, you've been to cooking classes too. You just got to get the basic principles down. Then you can combine it with broccoli or cauliflower or pumpkin or potato.
All
But
you
you
got
just
to
got
do
to
is
get the
sabji
because
and a dal. That's it.
you just got to get the basic principles down of how to do the spices,
Yeah.
when to do it. Like with a curry, you do the spices, fry the spices, then you put the vegetables in it. With a dal, you cook the dal, and then you add the spices last. So once you know those basic principles, then it's just a matter of how much spices.
Quantity, yes.
You know,
Because
how hot do you need the oil or
and
ghee or whatever,
that's
and
only
how
one
much spices you put.
way to learn that. Do the mistakes. There's no other way. If you do mistake, it's okay. That's the only way to learn.
Yeah, but I mean, if you learn properly, or if you follow a recipe, like if you follow the recipe, there's no mistake,
Yeah.
right?
that,
And you don't want to make mistakes on 50 people.
No, yes.
You know, so in a restaurant, you want to make your mistakes before you cook in the restaurant.
Mm.
You know, make your mistake at home or make your mistake when it's
Less
closed.
amount, like for people cooking for staff first, 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
If there's something, we can fix it. Yeah.
And if you make the mistake of putting too less salt, you can fix that up by adding more. But if you put too much salt, you can't fix that one
Then
up.
you're gonna
It's
put
harder
egg
to do.
or vegetable there, then quantity will be go
they
up.
don't even use recipes, these guys in the kitchen.
I know, but otherwise you just start doing recipes on a smaller scale and then just multiply them.
Because the boys cook that they don't have any written recipe. They learn.
I know, but still you can get an idea
Yeah.
of my computer's going to run out of battery in a minute. Still